All right. Welcome back for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Charles Alexander. Charles, welcome to the show, man. So awesome to have you.
Kevin, thanks, bud. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah. I know we were talking a little bit before we hit the record button, and I was just commenting how I your background is there's some commonalities between your background and my
Sure.
background. The family photo there and the kids' artwork, and
Oh yeah.
you're a family guy just like me.
I'm not rolling in it as deep as you are. We got to three and quit. Actually, we got to two and quit, and three just showed up anyways.
Yeah. Well, we
Yeah.
finally figured out what was causing that, and we
Dude.
fixed that too. You know.
Yeah. That was on Daddy. That's a whole separate story. It could be a podcast in itself. But we
Right.
we don't need to go down that road. Yeah.
Well, what before we get rolling, I want to just start off by giving a shout out to Vincent Pugliese because that's how you and I met. That's how you and I
Yep.
got connected. I had, he reached out and we'd been following each other on Facebook a little bit. And he sent me a message one day and he's like, "Hey, Kev," he's like, "Man, I've been kind of following you and I'd like to just talk with you and get to know you a little bit better." And I'm like, "Cool. Here's my calendar link. Go ahead and grab a time that works best for you and we'll make that happen." And he's like, "Well," he's like, "I'm available right now. How about you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So we just ended
Yeah.
up hopping on Zoom and ended up talking for about like an hour and a half or so. And
That's Vincent. Yeah, he's ready to roll.
yeah, and hold on, I got something in my throat.
Woo.
It's very interesting because lots of entrepreneurs don't have flexibility like that, you know.
No.
And he does. He does. He makes sure that he does. His whole life is structured so that he has flexibility like that stuff. And so it was really cool getting to know him a little bit. And then through that conversation, he's like, "Kev," he's like, "Man, I'd really love to have you come share with some of my folks. I run this group of entrepreneurs, and I'd just like to introduce you to them and just have you share." And I was like, "Sure." And so we did that, and that's how you and I met,
That's
Charles.
right.
And this is the best way to meet new people. And what a testament to the power of relationships, which of course is what this podcast is all about. And I just getting to know Vincent and stuff, and so meeting you through him, I
Hmm.
just kind of felt this instant connection, and you just got such a great sense of humor and stuff, and yet you're so low key about it and stuff. You're like my son. My son just cracks jokes all the time. And you're
Yeah.
like, "Wait a minute, did he mean for that to be a joke?"
Yeah.
Or and because he's just funny that way, and you're the same exact way, you know.
A dry sense of humor can get you in trouble. I can tell you that right now.
Oh yeah, it can. It totally can. Because yes, I have gotten in trouble for that.
Yeah.
so, so, and so I have really been looking forward to this conversation since getting to know you and just having this conversation and sharing it with a lot of other really amazing entrepreneurs. And so what I'd like to do is kind of start off with is let's set some context. Let's
Let's do it.
let you talk about what you do, who you serve,
Hmm.
what inspires you most about the work you're doing and the impact you're making. And heck, if you feel so inspired to talk about being a husband and dad and all that too, more power to you. Whatever you feel led to share.
But what I do, so for 17 years, I've been a one-on-one business coach at a small business development center. Find one near you, folks. It's a great resource. And I have loved doing that. I teach a lot of different workshops on a wide variety of topics, get to work with all the small business owners in the community. And then about 10 years ago, I decided I needed to practice what I preach. So I started my own little small side hustle that turned into a full-time business of its own, creating explainer videos, these little 90-second animations you'll see on
Mm-hmm.
somebody's website. And I managed to, go get through all the bumps and bruises of it, but it's, basically fully automated and I've got a lot of it outsourced. But now, or at least last year I decided that I really wanted to step it up a notch and have some of my own group coaching programs. I really like the idea of doing group coaching. There's a lot of different dynamics between one-on-one and group, but group, if you're talking about building relationships and getting to know people and leveraging other individuals' experiences, there's probably not a better way to do that.
Yeah.
So went through all the different topics. What can I teach people? I got this vast experience, but the one thing that people would always come back to and ask me about the most, and the thing I was always most excited to talk to people about was basically, real simple stuff. How to have a little time freedom, how to manage your work week in such a way that you get to do what Kevin does. We were talking before how you get to go to all the kids' ball games and activities, and if they say, "Hey, Dad, can you do so and so?" It's never no because daddy's got a meeting, because daddy's got to travel, because daddy's, chained to the laptop. And I'm the same way. I got three kids at the house, ages 15, 13, and 11. Two older ones are girls, you always get those jokes, she's 13 going on 16. And then,
Yeah.
like that 15-year-old man, she's going on like her third divorce. It's third level orange at the house every day. Luckily, the little boy plays basketball, football, and me and him hide quite a bit. But I wanted to teach other people, how do you get to that point? And I've got a full-time job. I've got a full-time business. I wrote a book last year. I have my own podcast. I still do all this under 40 hours a week, but I didn't get there by accident. I, had to do everything backwards in order to finally get it correct. And I decided I was going to teach that to other people. So last year I started a 90-day intensive, how to create a 4-day work week in 90 days or less,
Okay.
and primarily working with small business owners, entrepreneurs. In fact, small group, 5 or 6 people. One of them was a solopreneur. A couple of them had 5 or 6 employees, and one of them, somewhere in between. And
Oh,
great group. And in doing that, I got to the end of it, and I kind of realized, man, I need a little more of a membership model because these folks got done, and they're like, well, now what? And that's how I came across our common friend Vincent. Like, here in a minute, I got a good answer for you in terms of a question I know you're going to ask. But a buddy of
uh-huh.
mine introduced me to Vincent. Said, hey, he's got a membership on how to create memberships, which, by the way, is friggin' meta. Anytime you want to be able to sell your service, if you can sell a service that is teaching people how to do the service you do, brilliant. Like, I got a couple of buddies that are big time LinkedIn folks, and they're on LinkedIn telling you how to use LinkedIn. Brilliant model. You, and Kevin does, podcasts, and I'm sure lots of different events on teaching you how to meet and greet with people. Brilliant idea. Anywho, I, I'm learning to do that. I've got a group starting up here very soon, but the whole concept, back to the original question, is as entrepreneurs, as solopreneurs, whoever's listening, watching, however we get published here, is they need they need to know what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, what to focus on, what to outsource, what to automate, what to batch, and that's what I'm teaching people right now.
Gotcha. Very cool. So I want to hear. I want to. I want you to share with us an example. You don't have to share names or anything like that, but give us an example of a client that you have been able to help them achieve a result that was something that you were just incredibly proud of. Stuff. Give us an example of something like that, Charles.
Sure. I mean, I can give you a couple of examples of folk that I just went through this intensive with. I had
Okay.
Uh, one person that was able to shave a day completely off of her calendar. She's a solopreneur, digital marketing expert, does website design, does copywriting, has a mama of two. I think she does homeschooling, and she was already pretty tight with her time. I didn't really feel like there was a whole lot for her to pick up out of it, but as we started going through the coursework, as she started learning from the other people in the group and leveraging those relationships and saw what worked for them and what didn't, she was able to find a few things throughout the course of the week that was taking up her time. Simple things, but
Yep.
that you know about, but you still do it anyways. It's
Mhm.
to use the analogy, we all know how to get into shape. We don't necessarily need a personal fitness trainer. but you do, because if you don't have one, you're going to stuff that handful of goldfish in your mouth. You're going to not go to the gym. Same way with a group like this. The amount of time that is spent on email, the amount of time that is spent composing the perfect Facebook post or creating content or doing too many different things, trying to multitask throughout the day without batching and delegating
Yeah.
and automating. Either way, she was able to get, from a 5 day week down to like 3 or 3.5, just doing what we had discussed. And that was a ton of fun. A couple of others in the groups had one one set of folks in the group, same company, where they managed to get 24 hours between the two of them, simply by learning, what was distracting them the most. In this case, both of them, it was the phone.
Okay.
And these, we're talking
Okay.
about grown men and women, but identifying where their time was going, and without that group, they're not going to know that. I mean, they have a vague idea,
Yep.
but it's again like that personal fitness thing. I've got a vague idea, but that extra glass of wine is probably not good. But I don't know that it's not until Kevin, the fitness trainer, grabs me by the hand and makes me enter it into my fitness pal. I'm like, oh, holy cow, I'm adding 10 pounds a year just in a cheap box red wine, which is a true statement, by the way, folks. It's very addictive.
So this couple that you just mentioned, that between the two of them found an extra 24 hours. Is that, and that's a week, 24 hours a week?
Yep.
And so what are they now doing with that time that
Man,
they?
that's a great. So look, and this falls right into relationships. One of the big things that all entrepreneurs miss, everybody friggin' misses, when you get ready to really decide that I'm going to master my time, master the calendar, I want to spend more time in my relationship with my spouse. Me and my wife, we're not great about it, but we still go on dates. We still spend time together. I go to all the kids' events. There's dance, basketball, voice, guitar, football. In order to do that, you can't just go willy nilly and start trying to save your time without having
Plan.
a goal. Yeah, you've got to figure out what you want to do with that.
That's right.
Uh,
That's
and so many people, I've helped people previous to this iteration, I've helped people time management, carve up their time, A, B, C, D priorities. And then they're like somebody who retired and then immediately went back to work because they didn't know what to do with their time.
that's right.
Like I help people save time and then they didn't know what to do with it. They just
Yeah.
went back because they were comfortable in that setting, even if they
Yep.
didn't like it. That's why
Totally.
prisoners stay in prison because they're comfortable. So, what I tell people on the front end, if you really value those relationships, if it's that important to you, let's do two things. First and foremost, write down physically, pen to paper, what do you want your work week to look like? And I'm talking about not, I'm talking about what days do you want to work? What hours do you want to work on those days?
Yeah.
And I get a lot of common answers to that. A lot of folks are Monday through Thursday, a straight 6, 7 hours, hardcore, take the Friday off and boom, we're done. But you get varieties of that. People that want maybe Monday through Friday, but shorter hours, or they want to take off Wednesday, whatever it is. And it doesn't matter. 4 day work week is a concept, not an actual destination. But you have to know what that is. Now, the second thing is, and this is the best tip of them all, you must write down, what do I want to do with the extra time? So
That's
let's say I give you 8 free hours. You cannot fritter away your 8 free hours. Tell me what you want.
yeah.
People start immediately. I want to spend more time with family. I got friends that haven't seen him forever that are just Facebook like, and now I don't know anything about him anymore. I want to travel. I want to take, short trips. Not everybody has to go to Italy. Let's go to the mountains, the beach. I want to get back in the gym. I want to read a book. I want to pick up my old hobby. Hiking is a surprisingly big answer. I don't think people actually want to hike. I just think they like the idea of being outside and buying a new pair of Timberlands and going hiking. But I make them write it down. So, all right, well, how many hours would you spend doing it? Well, let's get even more granular. What would that look like if you spent more time with family? What are you going to go on one-on-one dates with your middle daughter that you don't talk to anymore? Or are you going to go shoot basketball with your son? Are you taking and all the way down, all that list, and they make the list. They're great. Now we're locked in. What does that mean? Being locked in means Now, every time we say yes to a thing that is just busy work, that might not be that important, that might be a new opportunity that's really not, we know what we're saying no to.
Yeah.
Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to two other things.
Yeah.
And that's not me making that up. People will say, well, I can still cram it all in. No, you can't. You're giving something up. And maybe it's sleep. Maybe
Yeah.
it's going to the gym. I don't know, but there's no way around that. You can Einstein time this thing to death, but that's not really the case. We all have 24 hours. So that's the key. Talking about me and relationships, you want to people want freedom. They almost always want freedom to build more relationships, to have more experiences. So we gotta set those ground rules up first.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up such an important point because I have been so guilty of that, of even becoming more efficient and more effective at my work that then in turn frees up time. But it is so doggone easy to just sit here and keep frittering away doing
Yep.
whatever because it's what you're used to, you know.
100%. That's what you know to do.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's simple. I mean, I've talked to a guy recently who has an extra zero in every way behind all the revenue and take home, and he had freed up his time tremendously. And then he ended up going back to work and starting another program. And what he said, and I don't discount it, but I just love the work I do. I mean, I'm sure that's part of it, dude. But you probably also didn't do any of the first things that we discussed. And you can love the work, but there the way I always have people that give me that response, Kevin, people, "Well, I just love what I do." And that's kind of it's true, but a lot of people will hide behind that. The easy way to get somebody to admit is like, okay, well, let's say you're going to do it tomorrow, but you quit getting paid. No one's going to give you money. You still going to go do it? Well, that's part of the validation. All right. Well, here's what we're going to do. Validate. They'll pay you that amount, but they're going to donate it to your favorite charity. Now, will you still go do it? You get crickets at that point. A lot of people love what they do, but it's also a good crutch.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, I like, I mean, I don't have a 4 day work. Well, sometimes I do. At least one or two
Man,
weeks.
I've talked to you enough. I know you come and go as you dang well please.
And it's oh, I try I my schedule revolves around my kids. And
Yep.
so like this morning is such a perfect example. My son Brock is 16, so usually he drives my daughter to school and brings her home from school and stuff. And but today, my daughter wanted to go to school early because she
Sure.
wanted to meet with some friends before school. And she goes, "Dad, I want at least 20 minutes before school." And I'm like, "Well, Brock wasn't because Brock doesn't work that way. Brock's like Brock gets up at the very last minute possible,
He wants to
gets in the
Dukes a
shower,
hazard his way
and
into the school, doesn't he?
oh, he, yeah, yes, and so I ended up taking her this morning unexpectedly, and so but my mornings like I don't really start my work day until 10 o'clock my time. My first call is never
Yeah,
booked before 10 o'clock, so that
sure.
I've just got that leeway. So when I get home, if I'm taking the kids to school or just getting them off to school, I got some time with my wife in the morning before I start working, so we can just have some coffee together and have a conversation, whatever. And then I'm done by 3 o'clock. My last call of the day is pretty much always at 2 p.m. I'm done by 3 because that's when the kids get home from
That's
school
right.
and stuff.
But
And
and that's right. But you have so the like I said earlier, a concept of the 4 day work week doesn't have to be a 4 day work week. It's just the concept is that
yeah,
you
yeah,
you have the ability and the freedom to come and go and do what you want when you want and how you want, as long as you're not filling in all of the empty time with emails, social media, checking your text one more time, because that's not bringing you any closer to the relationships you want or the experiences you're supposed to be having.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, okay, so now that we've got some context set here and people have a kind of an idea of what you do and what you're
Yeah,
all about and what inspires you, I want to switch gears just a little bit. And I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. So, have you ever been introduced, Charles, to a person or persons
sure.
who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons. And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Well, funny you ask it in that way. So you and I met because of Vincent. I
Yeah.
met Vincent because of a buddy of mine, Jason Elkins. And I don't know that I could attribute, let's say, everything, but he's kind of a hinge point in my life. I met him. Oh gosh, I bet I met him 25 years ago when
Wow.
I was trying to get a job, uh, a contract gig for Terminex, bug control company.
Okay.
And he was one of the recruiters trying to bring me there. Never got to meet him, just talked to him on the phone, email back and forth. That was it. Well, fast forward, oh, I don't know, man, a good 7, 8 years past that easily. And I have this job at the Small Business Development Center. Uh, got just fell completely backwards into the job and meet a dude in town who's a web developer, and he's wanting me to meet with one of his sales guys. His sales guys is that same dude, Jason Elkins. And
Wow.
Jason works for this local web developer, and man, we work together. We get along great. He brings in people to teach workshops here. He'll come teach workshops here. And then one day, lo and behold, he gets laid off from the web developer. He strikes it out on his own. Fun fact, by the way, he teaches a course called 100 Cups Consulting, and his whole thing is also networking, referral based, and all about relationships. I mean, he sleeps and breathes the stuff. We should probably have a conversation about that later because he'd be a
Yeah.
great guest. Uh, so he's taught workshops here with me forever. We've been friends. But I needed my own business coach about 10 years ago when I started that explainer video business. I tried to be my own,
Mhm.
which is idiotic. It's like a doctor that won't go to a doctor. And I was my own worst client. I would not listen to myself whatsoever. I wouldn't take any of my own advice. I wouldn't listen to me. So I'm talking to him. So he introduces me to his business coach, John Michael Morgan. And he's still, and he's does awesome stuff. So me and Jason were in that group forever. And John Michael Morgan's another one. He introduced me to several people that I know now that are good friends of mine. But I met him through Jason.
Okay.
And about a year or so ago, I thought, man, I'm leaning into this membership thing. I want to have a membership. I want to be the guy that when they're on Kevin's podcast and they say, "Who do you know?" I want them to say Charles out of a
Uh-huh.
very selfish, narcissistic reason, just because I like being liked and I like helping people. So, but I need my own membership group. I can't just do one-on-one coaching for somebody else. And how do I do that? Jason's like, man, I know the dude. You got to go meet Vincent. So, well, who's that? And he said, I'm in this membership freedom group. I'm going to learn. He's wanting to learn how to do his own membership group. I said, all right, well, same as you. I like text Vincent, like, hey, you want to set up time? He's like, let's talk now. I'm like, of course you said. So we talked. I'm in the group. And hopefully I talk to you this time next year. I'm going to tell you, I've got X number of people in my full-time membership group in addition to the other 4-day work week intensive, but that's because of that one buddy of mine, Jason Elkins. And I'd like to think I've in there's several cases where I've returned the favor, and I've introduced him to people that's given him a ton of work. So but that's a good example of that being somebody I met that's really opened a lot of doors for me, and it wasn't transactional. It wasn't, we don't exchange money, we don't go tick for tack. It's just because we're buddies.
Yeah. 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 You guys just appreciate each other, and you would just do whatever to help
Yeah.
each other out and stuff. You know.
Yeah.
So, well, first of all, let me before I ask this question, is there anybody else that you want to honor, or is that the person that you want to focus on today? Because I can dig in deeper with this if you want.
Man, I've got so many other. I mean, I don't know. It'd probably be better to dig in deeper on this one. I've got several others, but some of these cases, it's not always the deepest relationship. Some cases, it's a one-off because you've made a relationship through a relationship.
Okay.
But
Cool.
no, go. You can go deeper with this one.
Okay. So if you so this relationship with you and Jason goes back a long ways. You said what, 25 years? Is that what you said? Was 25 about
Well, by and large, 17 years, but that we met 25 years
you
ago.
met 25 years ago?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So if you look at this relationship with you and Jason and just all the things that have come from that over the last 17 to 25 years and stuff, what is an example of just one thing, one instance, one occasion where you personally got to make a really substantial impact and you know that would have never happened if not for your relationship with Jason?
Ooh wee. I would say the relationship I have with Jason helped get me into a business coaching group that I would have never decided to go into on my own.
Okay.
Uh, the folks that are in the group were great. On the outside looking in, I wouldn't have ever thought I could have meshed well, maybe with any of them.
Okay.
Just because I am not I am just middle of the road dad, the whatever you use, the 3 bed, 2 house, white picket fence, just corporate looking, sounding, walking, talking guy. And a lot of the folks in the group are more hipsterish, more, well, they're cooler than I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think they all use, language I don't use. It's hustle, grind, blah, blah, blah. Jason's like, no, it's not like that. You've got to come meet all the folks in this group. You got to come meet the business coach himself, and then you'll realize there's a lot more people in there that are like you, and the people you don't think are like you are more like you than you think. So either way, he worked on me for a while with that, and I finally got in there. The reason I point that out, even though Jason not wasn't my business coach, but being in that group, having a coach, having other people to lean on, is what grew that explainer video business. And if I hadn't grown that explainer video business to where it took off to almost its own thing, you know, I've made close to 1,000 videos for people that help them explain what they do in a very clear manner. I've helped a ton of people grow their business through having that content, through working with them to, solidify their message that was kind of a mess before. And that gave me not just the impact to help all of those other people, but gave me some extra cash to do things with my family that we wouldn't have gotten to do before, to take vacations we wouldn't have gotten to take, to mess around and finally get into a house that's your forever home, to have a couple of extra bucks to put your kids in all these activities that keep us so busy now.
Yeah.
But that's that with Jason working on me with that, and then even to stick with it at times when might not have wanted to. He was kind of a hinge point that kind of kept me going, and through him grew that business, and then that now gives me the confidence to go do this next thing that I want to go do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I don't think, I know that we as entrepreneurs, we a lot of times we will play this comparison game like you were just alluding to, that we'll look at other people and think like, oh, I don't belong there, or
Yeah.
what have you. I mean, I remember when I joined Genius Network, Joe Polish Genius Network Group. The investment to be in that group when I joined it in 2008, the second year that he started that group. The investment's 25,000 a year to be in that group. And that'll give you a pause if you've never written a $25,000 check before. That was an experience in and of itself. I will tell
I
you
bet.
that. and and my first time going to one of those meetings, when there was about 35 other entrepreneurs in that meeting, and that end of that first day, I was just like, wow, what in the heck am I even doing here?
Sure.
I'm like, I'm not on a level anywhere near these guys and gals. They're doing stuff so much bigger than me. And I even told Joe, I'm like, Joe, what are you thinking? I said, I don't belong here. And he's like, yes, you do, Kev. And I'll tell you, it's very interesting because now, the 2008, that's been a little while ago.
Yeah.
And now, through doing what I do and have been doing all these years, I am regularly in conversation with entrepreneurs who are doing such big things and making such a massive impact in the world. And
Hmm.
And as successful as they are, it's such an interesting thing because, well, what I do know is that the more successful they get, the smaller their circle becomes of people that they can truly trust and confide in. I do
Yeah,
know having conversations over all these years. The other thing I found out is that as world class as they are at doing what they do, and as long of a track record as they have for getting results for their clients, they are so timid about talking about themselves.
sure.
And I mean, it's phenomenal. I'm just like, are you kidding me? I mean, I know this gal. She has been the trusted growth advisor for companies like Haagen-Dazs, Pillsbury, Chanel, Brother, and yet she is the most down to earth, and like she would never. I talk way better about her and way more powerfully about her than she would ever talk about herself. And like, and quite honestly, I'll tell people she is such a badass at what she does.
Sure.
And I have them damn near begging me for an introduction, and yet this gal would never talk about herself that way. I got another friend of mine and a client. They run they run ads for clients. They Google ads, Facebook ads, what have you.
Hmm.
They've scaled one of their clients profitably to 1.5 over 1.5 million per month in ad spend profitably, and yet he is the most humble guy you'd ever meet, and he doesn't talk about that kind of stuff. And in fact, it kind of he even bringing it up on a group call that I was hosting, he was a little bit hesitant. I'm like, "What's the biggest win you've had in the last 90 days?" Well, we scaled one of our clients to $1.5 million a month in ad spend, and then he just moved on to the next thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, "What? Wait a minute! You did what?" I was like, "Hey, you
Yeah,
guys, is it just me or what?" I'm like, and and the thing is, I get to be that guy that will talk far more powerfully about them than they would ever talk about themselves. I kind of get to be their wingman.
sure.
And when I talk about them, it gets people going, dang, Kev, would you please introduce me? I want to introduce, and
Kevin is a fractional evangelist,
a fractionally value, that's a
a
good name.
CFE.
CFE, yeah, yeah. and and to just be able to have made those discoveries, and just like and you've made these discoveries, and we get to just use our god-given gifts and abilities to just bring to the table for the purpose of just helping these people, and it's just incredibly rewarding and fulfilling to be able to do that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fun stuff. And a lot of what you're talking about, you can go knee deep into imposter syndrome and looking at other people, but a lot of what we get trapped into with that is get trying to measure the gap versus the gain. That I come across that in, 10x is easier than 2x. Uh Dan, what's that dude's name?
Dan
Dan
Sullivan,
Sullivan.
and yeah,
Yeah. And then
yeah,
he even wrote a book, which I haven't read, Gap versus the Gain, but anybody listening, the gap is where we think we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be like those people. We're supposed to be 1.5 million a month. We're supposed to have X, Y, Z. Or even that you're thinking about that yourself. Like I keep thinking, I should already have a group of 100 people. I should already have 50. I should have already, this should. But if I go look at my gain,
yeah.
dude, in the past, just a couple of years alone, I mean, I wrote and published a book. I started a podcast. I got both knees replaced. By the way, that's holy cow. You ever want to go down for the count and take all the pain meds and watch all the movies? That's the way to do it. I've helped, dude, I've helped my kids do all kinds of stuff. I launched the 4-day work week and 90 days or less program, and now I'm starting to do this. The whole point being what you're talking about, you got to measure yourself in what you've gained and what you've accomplished, and most of it, as you pointed out brilliantly, and why you have this podcast, where you're doing that through relationships, and you can't just keep measuring the gap that you don't have versus what you think or what somebody else has. You got to measure the gain and the experiences and the people that helped you get there.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation today, Charles. And for anybody who's listening, that's going, dang, Kev, I really like Charles. I really love the way Charles shows up and stuff. And for those who are interested in some of the things that you've been talking about, how can they get more information? Do we have any website, any resources that we
Yep.
can share?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to my website, yourcharlesalexander.com. YOUR, CharlesAlexander.com. All kinds of goodies there. If you'll go to the footer of the page, I've got a exclusive toolkit that helps you figure some stuff out in terms of where your time is going, what tools you should be using. Great toolkit there. Got a little time management quiz, all kinds of fun stuff on there. But go there, and from everywhere else, from there you can find me. It'll direct you to LinkedIn where we can get connected, where we can have a conversation like me and Kev are doing right now. And that's the easiest way. One stop shop.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, I will make sure we include that with the show notes, with the interview when we release it. Um, Charles, any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
I'd like to go back to the initial point of if you're wanting to really expand your relationships, if you want time to be with the people that matter the most, start writing it down. What do you want your work week to look like? What do you want to spend that free time doing? If you do those couple of things first, then you can start figuring the rest out later, figuring out where the time's going, figure out why you're not doing it, figure out what you ought to batch, automate, delegate, or eliminate to help you do the things that Kevin preaches.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, Charles, once again, thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you. And I'm totally stoked to get this out there
Dude,
and share with a lot of other entrepreneurs.
all right. I appreciate